Welcome to the Not Okay Show, where our main headline is just keep going for that nut, blind squirrel. Wow, I guess we'll come back to that one in a little bit, but this was Monday Night Raw from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and they were lucky enough to get Halloween Havoc just the night before, but Monday Night Raw as the last WWE main roster show before Halloween, and we did not get a trick or street fight. Come on, WWE, you know we need that match, so I'm pretty disappointed by that. Well, nonetheless, let's get started with just keep running it back for no reason as Ludwig Kaiser again took on Sheamus, and Sheamus already started and finished a completely different rivalry against Pete Dunne. So why are we coming back to this one? And it showed because the intensity and animosity was just not there like we had seen in previous iterations. Well, nonetheless, Sheamus is yet again the ones as the kneecap has become essential to his repertoire as he used it not once but twice, and the second time he followed it up with a brogue kick to get the win yet again. And for Kaiser, well, like I said, the intensity wasn't there, and maybe he was just kind of thinking about that tag match that he's got with Gunther against Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton on Friday night. For Sheamus, he has now won 4 out of 5 matches and improves to 8-4, so come on, let's give him that Intercontinental title shot next. But for Kaiser, he has still not won any matches since returning from that injury, and he is just 3-5-1 in one-on-one action, and this one is just gonna get a not okay. So let's move on from that feud and never see it again. In our second match, we saw just keep having no repercussions, part 1, as Nile took on Zelina Vega. And American Made has learned absolutely nothing after getting smashed by the Wyatt Six, as they just keep doing their dastardly deeds and seemingly getting away with it, because Ivy is the ones, with the help of Julius Creed, grabbing the ropes to prevent Zelina from hitting a code red. So Ivy pulled out a new finisher, a swinging Uranagi, to pick up the victory. And Zelina is the twos, and even with a couple nice moves with a Meteora to the floor and a moonsault that landed on Ivy's head, well, she was not able to get it done due to Julius. So Wild Del Toro's assistants, of course, came too late, and they were dominated by the Creeds anyways at ringside. So unfortunately, Zelina picks up another loss. For Ivy, this is her first singles win since January, and she is now 2-3-1, but we will have to give an STF to Julius for grabbing the rope that probably cost Zelina the win. For Zelina, she's now lost 2 in a row after finally picking up a win, but that drops her to 1-6 in one-on-one action. And even with this interference by Julius, I guess this match was good enough for what it was, so we'll reluctantly give it an okay. So that takes us to our third match, where we just keep having no repercussions, part 2. Because Chad Gable got his chancla revenge from last week when he grabbed Rey Mysterio's leg, yanked him out of the ring, and put in an ankle lock that led to the War Raiders picking up a win with yet another new finisher. And with Gable's continued interference, we'll note that American Made has now had 4 matches, winning 3 of them since losing to the Wyatt Six, while the Wyatt Six has literally only appeared on our screens 1 time since they defeated American Made. What is going on there, folks? But as for the match itself, the War Raiders are the ones as they get their second win in 2 matches since their return, and they become the new #1 contenders, pulling out another new finish. This time it was a springboard clothesline German suplex combo to get the win. And the LWO will have to be the twos, as Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio look like they might be able to get it done, but of course it was Gable preventing that 619, so the LWO is going to have to turn their attention to American Made. And the New Day is the threes, and it was actually Kofi Kingston who had the best performance in this match of anyone, landing an SOS, then a trust fall onto the floor against all of his opponents, and finally hitting the backbreaker part of their daylight finisher. But Xavier Woods, as the QB, called an audible when he saw Ray get up onto the apron, which admittedly was probably the right move, but I bet Kofi doesn't quite feel the same since he couldn't see Ray behind his back. Nonetheless, that immediately cost him, and Kofi got hit by that new War Raiders finish, so it's back to the drawing board yet again for the New Day. As we said, the War Raiders go to 2-0, and they are your new #1 contenders, while the LWOs Mysterio and Lee take their first loss as a duo, and they go to 2-1 in all tags, while the New Day continues to be completely incompetent in multi-person tag matches, as they go to 0-4 in all such matches. And there was just something off about this tag team match the entire time, so I don't know, we're gonna have to give this a not okay. And in our main event, we go back to our main headline, which is just keep going for that nut, blind squirrel, as Dominic Mysterio and the Judgment Day finally get it done against Damian Priest, who had been 6-0 in all matches against any combination of Judgment Day members since losing the title at SummerSlam. So that means Dom is the ones. And is he actually the #1 contender after that match, as he gets the surprising victory after 4 members of the Judgment Day come down to the ring and distract the ref, and then McDonough and Carlito tried to take out Priest? Well, nonetheless, it worked well enough this time, even though it was probably pretty painful for McDonough and Carlito as they took several chair shots. But nonetheless, after Raquel pulled Carlito out of the ring, it was Dom who was right there to take advantage with a roll-up from behind, and he pulled those shorts to keep Priest on the ground for an amazing and shocking 3 count. But for Priest, he looked dominant in this one and was about to pull off the victory when that distraction finally came, and he still got the better of that for the most part with several chair shots, but he took his eyes off the prize just long enough to take that fall. And since this is a Judgment Day match, we've got plenty of STFs in our Judgment Day edition. So first it was Dom who attacked Priest before the bell rang, as Priest was just trying to hand his jacket to someone at ringside. And for that, we have to ask both the ref and the timekeeper, what were you thinking? As you didn't give Priest a chance to breathe or recover, as you just kept letting Dom beat on Priest and rang the bell. What was that, guys? Obviously, Priest turned it around pretty quickly from there, but there was just no reason to ring the bell right there, so do better than that. Nonetheless, we have to give Dom his 19th fine of the year for that early attack. Then, of course, we had the big distraction, first started by Liv and Raquel with the referee, then with Carlito and McDonough pulling Priest out of the ring and then throwing him over the barricade into the timekeeper's area. And for that, all 4 of them will pick up fines. And we'll note that this now gives McDonough a WWE main roster leading 29th STF, pulling one ahead of Balor since he decided not to show up. But you know, we have to give Balor credit for this because he was the only one that actually listened to Dom earlier in the night when he said he didn't want any help. So the other 4, they just disregarded what Dom wanted, but Balor, he was nice enough to let Dom do his thing. And lastly, after the match, Priest of course blew a gasket for finally losing to someone from the Judgment Day, as he landed a razor's edge on Dom after the match, then left the ring, but decided to come back and hit him with 5 more chair shots. So he left the ring again, and then came back in again to hit a South of Heaven chokeslam on Carlito and another South of Heaven on Dom. So for that, Priest will have to pick up his 12th fine of the year. So why did this match even happen? Adam Pearce said that Dom would have to face a former champion this week in order to try to prove himself worthy of becoming a #1 contender, but there were plenty of options out there. Seth Rollins was ready for a match, Sheamus had another match that we didn't need, and The Miz didn't really do anything this week except complain to Pearce, so we could have put him in a match. Yeah, I guess a couple other options are still kinda injured or in that tag team #1 contenders match, so they weren't all still available, but there were other options because just 3 weeks ago you told Finn Balor that it was time to move on, there would be no rematch, and that put Priest on the track to go back to Gunther for that #1 contender spot. So yeah, just 3 weeks later you put Dom in a match against Priest, and now maybe you might be taking away Priest's opportunity to give it to Dom? Because even with that win, Dom goes to just 3-8 in all one-on-one matches this year, while Priest, it stops his very impressive 6-0 winning streak against the Judgment Day in any type of match. And with that, he goes to 10-3. So of course, for this terrible booking decision by Pearce, and then just all of that interference, this one is definitely getting a not okay. And beyond the mat for Raw, we somehow had a whole lot of Bloodline, even though this isn't even their show. So Jey kicked off the show, and then Jimmy came out to thank Jey, but Jey said that they are not the ones, which is certainly true right now, and Jey told Jimmy that the last time he saw him was at WrestleMania when they fought each other. Yeah. Again, this is all Roman's fault, breaking up the family, and it takes them finally 6 whole months to even talk to each other because of their mutual hate for their own brother. So, great job, Roman. And so this made Jey say that they have to fix things, but if they do it, they'll do it together and be nobody's yes men. Which, again, I really doubt because you know what Roman's gonna do. But Jey then also agreed to speak to Roman at SmackDown this Friday, and then of course, Tonga and Loa came up from behind and attacked both of them in the middle of the ring, and after Jey and Jimmy got the better of it, then Sikoa pointed to Fatu to get in there and he took over, and Sikoa handed Fatu a steel chair to finish Jey off just like Sikoa had done to Jimmy right after WrestleMania. But Fatu took a little bit too long, so both Jey and then Jimmy teamed up to have a whole bunch of super kicks to take out the rest of the Bloodline, and they backed off and went out of the ring. So right after that, Adam Pearce confirmed on the phone to Nick Aldis that Jimmy was allowed to be on Monday Night Raw, but the rest of the Bloodline was not. So Tonga, Loa, Fatu, and Sikoa will all pick up fines for the attack and get 2-week suspensions for appearing on a show in which they were not allowed to be on. So, impressively enough, that gives Sikoa 28 total STFs, which is just one behind the previously mentioned JD McDonough. So later in the show, the Usos ran into Sami Zayn, and after Jimmy left, Jey told Zayn that he thinks Solo is worse than Roman, so Zayn laid down the law and spit some fire, saying that it was not Solo who mentally got into Jey's head for years and make him jump through hoops over and over again throughout those years to prove himself. So Sami said that Jey does not have to pick between the lesser of two evils, and we know that Solo is the lesser of the two evils. But unfortunately, Jey's response was a pretty cold one, saying that he just wouldn't understand because he's not family. But he was the honorary Us, Jey, come on! Sami would know better than just about anyone just how terrible Roman is. So in the locker room, Jimmy convinced Jey to let him speak to Zayn alone, but he couldn't find him until the very end of the show when he walked outside, and when Jey caught up to him, Jimmy pointed to Solo and Sami having a discussion in the parking lot. Now, of course, we don't know what those two were saying, and I'm sure Zayn was not about to be on Solo's side, but it seems like the Usos just might be fooled by Jimmy saying that family is all that they got, and Jey responding with a yeet. No yeet to that. No yeet. But if it's family now that Jey and Jimmy are seeking, well, that certain family member sucks. So Jey, get your head on straight and get away from this situation before it's too late. But I guess because Sami was so darn good as usual, we will have to give this an okay. Unfortunately, Rhea Ripley did not show up, but she had a quick pre-tape segment where she pointed out that everything Raquel did to her was with malice, but everything that she did to Raquel was deserved. And she said that she's not going to stop until she gets the title, which is pretty much everything we heard before, so not okay. And same thing with Gunther. He didn't show up, and he pretty much just repeated what he said on Friday night, that Cody Rhodes is a gutless champion and a secondary champion. So yeah, not okay. And we don't really have a grade for it, but I want to point out that Braun Breakker also did not show up either, even though he is the brand new IC champion. So that was a weird decision. And Seth Rollins made his way to the ring saying that Reed is a monster, but he is also a monster. And this was bringing out a side on him that he hadn't seen in quite a while. So that has some pretty interesting potential. And then Reed goaded him out into the parking lot to fight, and in fact they fought quite a bit, with Rollins nailing Reed's head off of a tractor trailer door 2 times and then stomping him on top of a car hood. But somehow Reed recovered from this, and he put Rollins through a couple tables with a Death Valley driver that would send Rollins to the hospital. Now with their crown jewel match maybe in question if Rollins is able to recover or not, we have to give out a couple STFs for both men. First, the fight was fair, so nothing there, but certainly they destroyed a lot of equipment and also possibly a car hood, so they'll both get fines for that. And they both have to get 2-week suspensions for taking out a couple of security guards, throwing them all over the place, which is really unfortunate for those security guards as they seem to be having a really tough time, so I hope they're getting a lot of good hazard pay for all of the beatings they've been taking recently. Nonetheless, that now gives Reed 18 STFs and Rollins 9 STFs. And lastly, Karrion Kross told The Miz that he has 2 choices. 1, to either tell the Wyatt Six to stay out of their business, or 2, he'll break his legs. So I think you know what choice Miz is going to take, except the Wyatt Six were yet again nowhere to be found. So The Miz had to call his own audible, and he found R-Truth, saying that he was very sorry and wanted to reform the Awesome Truth, which Truth seemed to be all about for a couple of seconds until he slapped him and knocked him onto the floor with it. So Truth, I think it was well deserved there, but unfortunately you have to get a fine. Then as Truth was walking away, he then called Pete Dunne Butch, so I have a feeling Butch is not gonna take that very well. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, and if you missed our SmackDown recap, make sure to check that out to see our grades from last Friday. But for Monday Night Raw, this one's gonna have to get a not okay.